There's a place He comes to me. Though I'm blind, He helps me see. Though I see dimly in this place, one day I'll see Him face to face.
This is Kurt Kaikkonen, pastor of Calvary Chapel, Waterford, at your neighborhood church. Today on Face to Face, we'll be in the book of Matthew. So grab your Bibles and let's get started. If you want to hear this complete message in its entirety, go to yourneighborhoodchurch.com, where you can download Your Neighborhood Church app at the App Store.
And so this coming back that we're talking about right now is the rapture of the church. This is not Jesus's second coming at the end of the tribulation period. Because at the rapture of the church, all the things will seem like it's just business as usual. So when Jesus comes for his church, there will be no signs. It'll just be another day. But the whole world, they're going to know exactly that day and time at Jesus' second coming. Because at the second coming, the whole world will be broken. It'll all be turned upside down. The sun's broken and the moon's broken, and men will be hiding in the caves. They're not wanting to see the face of the Lamb. They're hoping that the rocks are going to fall on them, and everybody will be terrified. So this is a whole different world than the world that we live in right now. And it says that you'll actually be able to count the days. That'll be 1,290 days from when the abomination of desolation is placed in the temple in Jerusalem. And so everybody can know exactly the day that Jesus is coming, because all of this is written in the book of Daniel. And it will be just like all of Daniel's other prophecies, with the counting of the days, like the counting of the days for the triumphal entry and when they return to the land. And Daniel, he's batting 400. So that day, everybody will know when it is, and they'll know exactly when to expect Jesus' return. So Jesus here, he's warning the church because he doesn't want them to be caught off guard about when he comes, because this could happen at any moment, at any time. It's like a thief in the night. And so Jesus goes on and he says it'll be just like the days of Noah, and how they didn't know that the flood was coming because there was no signs. And that even though they were warned, they just kept living their lives as usual. And so it says here, it says that in Noah's days, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage. And giving in marriage, all that means is that they were marrying off the kids, that the parents were still arranging marriages for their children, all up into the day that Noah entered the ark. And when you look at this same passage in Luke of the Olivet Discourse, it doesn't mention Noah at all, but it talks about the days of Noah because it gives us a warning. And it says, "Take heed to yourselves, lest your hearts be weighed down with carousing, drunkenness, and cares of this life, that day come upon you unexpectedly." So it's just like Noah's days. And then there's this phrase right after this where it says, "Until the day that Noah entered the ark and did not know until the flood came." And then here's this little phrase, and it says, "And took them all away. So also will the coming of the Son of Man be." And that phrase there that says, "took them all away," and the word there that Jesus is using actually means took them all away to judgment. And so some Bible teachers, they will teach you that this next section in here, 40 and 41, where it says, "And then 2 men will be in a field, one will be taken, the other left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill, one will be taken and the other left." They'll tell you that that's not speaking about the rapture of the church. But they believe that the one who's being taken is being taken away to judgment, because they're using the interpretation of that word in verse 39 about Noah and the flood and how they were taken away to judgment. But I don't believe that view, because the word taken in verse 40 and 41, that's a different Greek word than what Jesus uses in verse 39, where it says taken away for judgment. But because in verse 40 and 41, there's a change in the grammar. And so that word here for taken has a totally different meaning, and it means taken to oneself or taken along aside yourself. And that word has absolutely nothing to do with judgment. So here, I believe Jesus is talking about the rapture of the church, where he's going to take his church to be with himself. And so the point being made here is that as it was with Noah, where there was no sign and where it's just a day like any other day, it's going to be like that when he comes to get us. So it'll be a day where everyone just goes to work and you're out there working in the field and then you disappear. And hopefully you're not the one who's sitting there watching somebody else disappear. And if you end up and you see all these people just disappearing, can you go over to my house and let the dog out? Because we're not going to be home for a long time. And I'm not sure what the world is going to say when all these Christians disappear. They'll probably have something like it was aliens, or that they knew that we were bad people and that we were actually taken away to judgment because we were holding the world back. And somehow the earth is cleansing itself from all of us crazy people. But the whole point of Jesus' teaching is to be ready, because we don't know the hour. And Jesus says that the Son of Man is coming at an hour that you don't expect. And there's another reason that I believe this is why Jesus is talking about the coming for his church to take us away in a rapture. And that's because of the way that it sounds in verse 42, because he says, "Watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your Lord is coming." So that tells me that we're to watch for him. All right, then Jesus, he goes on and he tells us about two different kinds of servants. He talks about a faithful and wise servant, and he talks about an evil servant. So these are both professed believers. And this faithful servant is who God had made a ruler to take care of his people till he comes. And so he's supposed to be tending them and feeding them. And that's actually all of us, because we all have people in our lives that we're supposed to tend and people that we're supposed to teach and minister to about the things of God. There's people put in our lives that we're supposed to love them until Jesus comes. But then there's this other servant. It's the evil one. And this guy, he doesn't serve his master, but he only serves himself. And he only serves his own self-interest. And he doesn't believe that his master is coming soon. So he doesn't believe him that he's going to be returning. And so he doesn't act like a servant of God, but it says that he hangs out with the drunkards, he joins with them, and that he actually persecutes them and mocks them, the other servants, the other Christians. So this is someone who claims the name of Christ, but he only claims it in name only. And it says on that day that Christ, when he returns, that guy's going to be caught off guard. Some people will tell you, they'll say, well, that guy's a believer. Well, he's just going to lose his rewards. And some commentators, they tell you, they go, well, cutting in two just means that he's going to be whipped, that he's going to be cut with a whip. But that's debatable, because some of them say, no, that means he's going to be cut in half. But what it sounds like to me, that this servant is being judged as a non-believer, because that's what he really is. He's a non-believer. He doesn't believe that his master is returning. And it says that his portion will be with the hypocrites, where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now, I've never heard of that kind of judgment ever used for a believer in Christ. And again, the message here is that the wicked servant is not waiting for Christ, and that we need to be watching and waiting, because being faithful pays off. You get rewarded, but it's up to us. And so now we get into chapter 25. And Jesus, he's still talking about waiting and watching and being ready. Because if you notice, this chapter starts with the word then, because this is just a continuation of what Jesus has been saying, because there was no chapter breaks in the original writings. And so now Jesus, he gives us a parable. And if you remember, a parable means to cast alongside. So Jesus here, he's going to teach them a spiritual truth that they don't know by placing it alongside or casting alongside with something that they do know. And you have to understand this about parables. Parables are not made for doctrine. We don't get our doctrine from a parable. So that means that not every little character, or you can write a meaning into every little thing that you read here. A parable usually only has one point and one lesson. So now we have a parable about a wedding. And so in this parable, the bride is not the church. So the wedding here, it's only being used to make a different point. So a lot of people think, well, aren't we the bride? Well, yeah, we are the bride, but here we give Jesus a little bit of grace here. And now here we're the bridesmaids, the 10 virgins. Okay, so today the church has been waiting for the return of Jesus for about 2,000 years, and it's been a long wait. And many confessed believers, they become tired of waiting for Christ's return. So in this story, the bridesmaids, or the 10 virgins, they're waiting for this bridegroom to take them away to the wedding feast. And so the bridesmaids here, they're confessed believers of the church. And the bridegroom, he's the returning Christ. And if you remember, there's 3 parts to a Jewish wedding. There's the engagement, which was an agreement that was made by the parents. And then you have the betrothal, where promises were made between the husband and the wife, though they don't live together yet. And then the marriage, that was 1 year after the betrothal, when the bridegroom came to go get his wife and to bring her home to the wedding feast. And so what was typical in Israel, because if you remember that the properties were passed down from father to son, because it was a family inheritance. And so the property was always to remain in the family. So what would happen is that the son, he would build a home for his bride onto the father's house. And so when the father, when he would see that that house, that home was ready and complete, he would go tell his son, he'd say, go get your bride. And then the son would go and he'd bring back his bride to the wedding feast. And that feast didn't last just a day. That feast lasted for a week. And then the couple, they would go into the bridal chamber that the son built, and they would be there for 7 days. And no one would see that couple for the 7 days while they had the feast. Now, I'm saying all this, not because all of this has to do with this parable, but since we're talking about Jewish weddings, this gives me an opportunity to point out a couple of things. Okay, you remember at the beginning of the sermon where it said that no one knew the day or the hour except for Jesus' Father. And if you can remember way back when we were reading the Gospel of John, where in chapter 14, verse 2, Jesus said, "In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself." And so that's just like this story. So nobody would know the time that the father would send his son to go claim his bride. All right. So now Jesus, he's built this bridal chamber for us. And he's waiting for the father to say, "Son, go get your bride."
You've been listening to Face to Face. Face to Face on this radio station has been provided by Your Neighborhood Church. If you want to help support Face to Face and put this program on other stations just like yours, you can contact us at yourneighborhoodchurch.com or write Your Neighborhood Church, P.O. Box 500, Romeo, Michigan 48065.
There's a place he comes to me. Though I'm blind, he helps me see. Though I see dimly in this place, one day I'll see him face to face.
Tune in again tomorrow at this same time as we continue to go through the Bible.